Previously on Red Reasoning.
Open up your eyes!
And now, the continuation.
That's a clickbait title, but then again, I like that you think of me so hatefully.
Don't flatter yourself, Sanguine. I don't mean in real life. And clickbait seems to work just fine. Can you help me explore this new place? It feels like this place transformed overnight.
Can you at the very least be more specific?
When I say we need toxic relationships, that doesn't mean you should actively seek them out or to stay in one if you currently are in one. I'm saying that how media, literature, and even in real life, we kind of think of toxic relationships as simply victim and abuser relationships, and nothing more.
It's much more complicated than that. Negative energy can flow in many different ways. Sometimes it's mutual. Sometimes it's subtle manipulation, and other times you're your own abuser. But why is it so important to write them? Entertainment is escapism, a way to take you out of this world and into another completely.
It's good to have an escape, and sometimes it's true, that's all it is, an escape. However, people oftentimes will use media as a way to form opinions, ideas, or project what they're doing in real life to the media that they're watching, or even reading. Things you write and things you do with fiction actually do influence your life.
I see. So, what do you say about us, then?
There is no us. Why is there an us in that sentence?
Before we start, let's define what exactly a relationship is and how it can become or can be toxic. According to Google, a relationship is the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected, or the state of being connected. This is not limited to platonic, romantic, or familial relationships. Most of what we can talk about today can be implemented in most of these relationships.
It's important to note that what is considered toxic to us might not be toxic to you. So in this video, we will be saying that a toxic relationship is one where there is no safe place to be, or where it's not safe for both parties or just one. According to healthscopemag.com, a toxic relationship is identified under a relationship characterized by behaviors on the part of a toxic partner that are emotionally and, not infrequently, physically damaging to their partner. Damages self-esteem and drains energy, and characterized by insecurity, self-centeredness, dominance, and control. Specifically, we're going to cover how people can write them, what can be used as a tool for your writing as you're trying to write a toxic relationship. So, to do this, the most simplified terms of a toxic relationships can be identified as something that drains your self-esteem and energy, selfish to one party or both, emotional and/or physical abuse, a place where you don't feel safe, and just for added measure, I'm also adding in that they don't allow you to progress, not supportive of your interests that you value. Now, this doesn't mean they can't critique or they just don't like it. It just means that they outright think it's stupid and aren't respectful of it.
Relationships on their own are supposed to be there to contextualize your characters and your world. How the main character or characters feels about other people can influence the mood of the story, or how your audience feels about your world. The reason why is because in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, things like belonging and relationships are ranked higher than food and even water. Now, how do you write a toxic relationship? There's so many different ways. Where to begin?
It's very important to understand that most relationships don't start toxic. Most of the time, it just starts out like any other relationship, with courting and dating and junk like that. Maybe your character started out in a perfectly fine relationship with the other character, but then after a while, one or both parties just feel obligated to be together, and so it kind of divulges into toxicity. It's very rare for a character or a relationship to just start out toxic. It's not healthy. We try to avoid it. Sure, there might be warning signs, but it's rare for there to be outright toxicity in a relationship. This is actually how most pimps develop people into prostitution. The pimp gains their trust, starts buying them things, slowly cutting off loved ones, starts saying that they owe them because they bought them things. It's a very common tactic, and it makes it very hard to resist leaving. Who do you think you have to run to? You already pushed friends and family aside. How are you going to sustain yourself when everything you've been provided for is by your significant other? You can't find a job right now because they won't let you. Which can be a very powerful story all on its own.
One of the few exceptions to that is Enji Todoroki from My Hero Academia. Enji was always obsessed with being the number one hero after being number 2 to All Might for so long, and bought his wife from her family for the possibility of a better quirk user. It was shown that Enji did show some care for his wife, Rei, but he still bought her from her family and used her for his own personal gain. The point of the marriage was not out of love, but out of the possibility of having a child with a strong quirk.
Many people were forced into relationships. They were simply viewed as old-fashioned arranged marriages. But clearly it was unethical.
When looking at this relationship, we can see the darker sides of what quirks and being a superhero in this world can be. This is a great way for you to build your world without doing a full exposition dump, using a toxic relationship as a narrative device. We, the audience, should know that it's not okay to marry, be with someone, or befriend someone because of this one little thing that they have, or this one power or perk that they have. We are told that while this practice of quirk marriage is not looked upon positively, it does in fact happen, and it also increases the tension by the fact that Enji can just get away with it. The only way that I would think a toxic relationship outright would be able to work is either if it's an arranged marriage, or if it's the I can fix him mentality.
The I can fix him mentality is a very common trope where person A finds person B, and A finds that B is dark, broken, edgy, but maybe with a little help from person A, person B can be cured and appreciate person A for what they are. Don't get me wrong, I actually like this trope.
Oh, wait, you like it?
What? I can't have interests outside of you?
No, I just, it's weird to hear that you have interests, outside of making me miserable.
Well, I like a good many things about this trope, including how incredibly twisted it can be. Usually, it's a trope made for the hero, where person A is the hero trying to help person B find the light. Beauty and the Beast is such an example, where Belle is basically there by duty, and Beast is trying to charm her into loving him, yet he fails to do so. Despite many people calling this troublesome or Stockholm Syndrome, the fact of the matter is that Belle actively refused to interact with Beast. She's able to leave whenever she so desires.
Promise or no promise, I can't stay here another minute.
When they do actually interact, they do it as equals. They start by working to understand each other. This then causes character development with Beast, and while Belle remains a flat character, she is comfortable enough in herself that she allows Beast into her life.
Meanwhile, it can also be twisted as one party manipulating the other, such as in the case of Harley Quinn and Joker. I'm not going over everything. Harley Quinn is very popular right now, so I'll keep this short.
The fierce goddess within.
Originally, Harleen Quinzel was a psychiatrist for Arkham Asylum and started interviewing the Joker. As the two start getting along in their sessions, the Joker then manipulates her into thinking that she can save him, eventually giving into the life of crime as Harley Quinn. This is great writing-wise because it shows that Joker is highly intelligent and is able to be manipulative with great wit and charm, contextualizing Joker's power, especially in Mad Love, where we're told that the present relationship is not that great. Meanwhile, Harley is contextualized as the sympathetic victim because she was taken advantage of, and now is in an abusive relationship of which she has a hard time getting out of.
It's so cool.
Like anything though, there are always problems with these dynamics, as there is a careful balance between healthy relationships and unhealthy ones. There are also mutually toxic relationships that can occur as well, such as what was found in Jasper and Lapis, where both characters were bringing out the worst in each other, dealing out as much as they took. Just because they are committing toxic actions against one another, it doesn't make their situation any less toxic. It's an interesting way of writing a toxic relationship which, at the time, wasn't too terribly talked about. Lapis actually admits to missing Jasper and wanting to go back. Jasper enjoys the power that came with the relationship, begging for her to come back. This brings up a few things in each character. Lapis has a lot of rage within her that has been repressed or wrongfully inflicted to others, and this can be shown as a foil to Garnet's relationship, which is shown to be more stable and readily communicative, for mutual benefits fueled by love.
In contrast, Korra and Mako from Legend of Korra are toxic to each other because they weren't invested in their own relationship. They liked the idea of being in a relationship together. Korra seemed to like Mako for no other reason other than he's a powerful bender and she admired that in him. And I think Mako liked her back because she chased him so bad. I think. But after being in that relationship, they didn't find it nearly as fulfilling as they initially thought. The reason they stay together is because they thought they could make it work, but then Mako addresses the inevitable. This relationship is toxic, and it's best to break up. But Korra reacts to it as well as anyone being called toxic and storms out.
It's also important to note that we have spoken a lot about heterosexual relationships where the male is clearly the abuser. Usually in the media, you are presented with females being abused by men because that's been the historical norm. Strong positive stories about women going through abuse is very inspirational, and on and off they were told women couldn't do much. But in recent years, that's changed in a way that is both positive and negative.
This is going to get off topic and very political very quickly, so here's the timestamp to skip. If you're at an impressionable age, 14 to 17, I'd advise you to talk to your parent, teacher, guardian about this subject, and /or do your own research. It's very important to talk about this as a writer, but also to identify what you see in your world today as of this video coming out. Alright? We good? Cool. Let's talk about the recent years of 2010s and the 2000s. As most of you know, we got a resurgence of the Women Can Do Anything movement, which was inspired by the 80s movement, which in turn was inspired by the 1940s movement. Wonderful moments came out of this. Movements all across the board. The hashtag #MeToo movement, where women were able to speak out over their sexual and physical abuse. Women were finally becoming a higher number of the representatives in Congress and in government, and showing that equality is possible between the genders.
An issue then comes in the rise of radical feminism, becoming more prominent in our culture. Suddenly, anything and everything a man does is no longer considered normal, but instead a constant threat. The mere thought of male genitalia existing was considered harsh. Men now expect to deal with a world where women can do anything they want and get away with it. Women disregarding transgender women because they were born different to them, disregarding men entirely despite plenty of evidence that men have a pretty bad time of it as well.
Women are more likely to win divorce cases and custody over the kids because men can't afford alimony, child support, and themselves all at the same time. Men are more likely to succeed in suicide attempts statistically because they research more, and also they're told not to express themselves, period. Did you know that in England, according to the Sexual Offence Act, a woman cannot rape a man unless he is penetrated? If the penetration is not had by male genitalia, it's called non-consensual buggery. which at best gives you a 10-year sentence? And that's even if men can even report it. If you think that it's really bad for a woman to come forward, men have such a reputation for being stimulated by anything, the idea of coming forward is almost laughable. The reason I'm going off on this is because women can be abusers, whether they're masculine or feminine, physical or emotional. Man-hating is a thing, and we should be aware of it when talking or writing about toxic relationships. Usually in media, women are emotional abusers, and that's because they see more value in emotional and physical scars. That's why whenever you see a female villain, usually speaking, they're using their words and physical appearance to manipulate someone into doing their bidding. Meanwhile, a male villain is going to use a physical bargaining chip, something tangible like a loved one or money. But I think it's important to understand that there isn't just doom and gloom in emotional and toxic relationships. There's always something to look forward to.
Of course, one can always leave the relationship if it's toxic and have the story end there. It creates a sense of hopelessness, which, if that's the story you're going for, great. But that gives the audience a sense that in that situation, there's no way out. You are trapped there forever, which is also a constant problem with the character of Harley Quinn. She's constantly either characterized by her relationship with the Joker, getting back with him or any other relationship she has because of her origin story, causing this sense of hopeless burden to recycle back to a bad situation.
A lot of people like her because she's an icon for moving on from an abusive relationship. Something that everyone needs from time to time. Leaving a toxic relationship is a strong message, and it's a hard story, but sometimes it isn't necessary.
It's so cool.
Sometimes it's just a toxic situation and you just have to work it out with each other, which can also be very powerful. Strengthening the bond of the relationship, or finally saying that there's nothing that can go forward in this relationship. Something that Jasper and Lapis does really well when Jasper says that she's changed and Lapis rejects it. Meanwhile, Sapphire and Ruby also do this in our second meeting of the characters when they have a fight and show some of the most negative sides of each other. Sometimes it's better that both parties understand that it isn't working out and they need to break it off. And you know what? That's fair. They need to progress as characters outside of it, and the relationship is toxic to both of them. Korra and Mako did this, and after they did, Korra understood her toxic behavior and really looked at how their relationship seemed. They even both get better after the relationship happens, and they were better off without each other than with each other. And that's fine.
In conclusion, men and women can both be abuser or victim, and should be treated with respect appropriately when talking about these toxic relationships. That is, if you wish to be believable. There are different types of toxic relationships, and they are in fact important to contextualizing your world.
I don't think we have enough time to point out that these can also be used as family dynamics as well. Mother Gothel is also a good example of emotional abuse, both in the movie Tangled and the show Tangled. Once again, though, toxic relationships are identified as something that drains your self-esteem and energy.
It's nothing.
Then I don't know why it takes so long. Oh, darling, I'm just teasing.
Selfish to one party or both.
All I have is one request.
Don't ever ask to leave this tower again.
Emotional or physical abuse.
I see a strong, confident, beautiful young lady. Oh, look, you're here too.
Could be both. Where you don't feel safe.
Stop biting me!
And where they don't allow you to progress.
The world is dark and selfish and cruel. If it finds even the slightest ray of sunshine, it destroys it.
They are also easily confused with healthy relationships because of things like misunderstanding of situations from the audience or mishandling from the writers themselves. Just like many tropes, they're able to do a lot with toxic relationships. They're as good as representation for anyone in the audience, and they're really great for constructive world-building elements. There is one more thing that we have to address, though.
Oh, and what's that?
Not all toxic relationships are necessary for a story. If you're only there because it's dark and edgy and tragic, then there are so many better ways to do it.
So then, What are we?
What are you talking about?
Am I toxic to you?
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Process of circumstances being what they are, she's not coming.
Hello, my Red Army, Crimson Glow here, and these are the Patreon shoutouts for this video. I would like to set up a shoutout to DBirch01, Transformer Brett, and ChronoCast9. Thank you so much, and I mean this so very much, for supporting my efforts to making content for you. And even if you're not a patron, thank you so much for supporting me through these videos, comments, likes, and even criticisms. I love when you guys criticize me, actually. Just, it means so much for me to know that you guys love this content that I'm putting out, and it is so reassuring. If you're curious on how to be a patron, look in the description below, or go to patreon.com/Crimson Glow. Things that you can get on Patreon is getting your name shout out, getting your name on the video at the end of every video, having these little avatars that I've created that you can see on screen, and also having early access to scripts that I'm writing, and also a Discord chat. Yeah, I have a Discord server now. That's really cool. A lot of fun, and I hope that you guys enjoy the content either way. If you can't support me through Patreon, that's totally fine. I totally understand. Please stay safe out there. And as always, this has been your future Evil Overlord, Crimson Glow, and see ya!